You want to make a plug, probably. So why don't you do it?
Yeah. So I'll be on the Letterhack's live show tonight
Right.
at 8 p.m. Eastern. Providing live coverage.
Yeah.
So I thought y'all were kind of putting this all to bed because didn't you say you're going to have the Letterhack with Harvey K promoting that last week? Didn't you say that you were considering that?
We're planning on doing that on Friday.
Yeah, but the ceasefire was broken.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're both great guys.
We all make our we make our
the
beds.
Show's great.
We make our beds,
Yeah.
and then we have to line them. So.
Yeah. All right.
All right, John.
Glad you got your free press
for Atlanta. I'm hard.
Okay. Yes. Let's hope so. All right. Thanks for the call, John.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Sure thing. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Earned media for the Letterhack.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
He don't miss, folks.
Does he miss it all?
He does not miss whatsoever.
Not lately.
Oh my gosh. He don't miss, folks. He does not miss whatsoever.
Hello and welcome. I am the Letterhack, and I am once more happy to introduce my co-host from What You Can Do, Jake Drogelis, and our very special guest, resident progressive politics and elections expert, John from San Antonio. Folks, gents, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, looking forward to Ilhan Omar victory tonight, and hopefully a no vote on the constitutional amendments in Wisconsin. So looking forward to that. Looking at the 3rd district of Wisconsin also, and I mean, I think that 2 of those candidates are pretty good. I mean, Eric Watson doesn't have a great shot of winning, only raising $50,000, but his issue set is fantastic. With Bernie and the squad, very similar to those issues, and trying to get a ceasefire in Gaza. Just kind of typical stuff. But I mean, it's all great. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, job guarantee, and so it's great to see people running like that. And so,
yeah.
So Katrina Shanklin is running against Rebecca Cook, and those are probably going to be the big contenders. So she's raised Katrina Shanklin's raised $880,000, and she is a member of the Wisconsin Assembly, and has got a lot of union support. And so Rebecca Cook, yeah, she's got a lot of, she's a conservative Democrat, got a lot of support from pro-Israeli groups. And I mean, I guess you can make the argument that she's, most Democrats vote with each other on most of the time. It's most of the time anyway. They 90% of the time they vote together. Of course, the worst of the worst conservatives do vote against the party. Look at Kristen Sinema and look where she's at. She got essentially kicked out of the party for being that. So.
Well, it's another special election night coverage. That's what we're doing here, folks. We're looking at Wisconsin, and we are also hyper focused on Minnesota's 5th congressional district and Ilhan Omar's primary, where the polls will be closing soon, and we will be bringing you results as they come in. And by that, I mean as soon as they come in and throughout the night until we know for sure who the winner is. The 3-term incumbent faces a rematch with former city council member and self-proclaimed Zionist Don Samuels. In 2022, Samuels came within 2 points of beating Omar. And so with those numbers, he's decided, might as well give it another shot. As reported by Minneapolis's local KARE 11 as recently as yesterday, Samuels, fortunately, still lags behind Omar in funding and name recognition, even though he has a substantial head start in recruiting volunteers, which he began doing late last year. The last time a Republican won this district was 1960. So whoever wins will be favored to win in the general, no doubt. Meaning, once again, AIPAC and GOP donors are truly just trying to buy Democratic seats where they can win them on their own. So I have an example of this that I want to share. Here's a tweet. Sorry, that's a little difficult to see probably. So I'll read it to you. Members of a WhatsApp group founded by a wealthy pro-Israel donor or donors coordinated to infuse last-minute cash into Don Samuel's primary race against Rep. Ilhan Omar. The members of the group, which included a consultant who at the time was working for the Samuels campaign, as well as far-flung political donors, discussed raising six-figure sums for a political action committee, strategies for campaign phone banks, and an effort to marshal Republican voters to boost Samuels in Tuesday's open primary. It doesn't sit well with me at all. I don't like it. But this is a little bit different than what we've seen from, say, Jamal Bowman's race and then Cori Bush's race last week, where AIPAC is just going all in against them and costing them their primary. This time, it seems more like a last-minute effort. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's what happened the last time also. I mean, I think there was a lot more money coming in the last time. In like I said on Majority Report, I mean, the issues, security issues around policing were really at the forefront. That's what, Samuels was really, and the AIPAC money was really attacking Omar on. And I just think that she also perhaps a little bit lax in her constituents' service. I mean, that's what I've read from some people, and she didn't take the race as seriously as she could, because she was up in polling by 20 points the way she is now. I mean, it's actually 27 in the last poll. And so, I mean, that's the thing about if you go, the smaller the race is, if you're a city council race or you're a mayoral race or even house races, and you have polling, it's just not as accurate as if you have, let's say, a Senate race or a presidential race where there's a larger. I mean, it could essentially, you still need to use that sample size of at least 400. But I mean, I'm just looking at it historically, and so some of those races that have. I mean, look at AOC's race. Where both her and Crowley had huge leads by Crowley, and they were both wrong. And so, I mean, I am a little bit apprehensive that perhaps the polling could be wrong, but at the same time, most of the time it is right. I mean, you look at the two races, they were unfortunately the squad members lost, and the polling was absolutely on the money. In the Bowman race, they said that he was going to lose by 17. He did lose by 17. In the other race, they said Bush was going to lose by 6. She did lose by 6, and that was with an AIPAC. It was with the Melman Group, who is based on AIPAC money, essentially. Very, very pro-Israel. And so I thought, I'm trying to trying to be positive towards progressive candidates always. And so I mean, but it was right in the end, so.
I do think when it comes to local races, people, rather conversely than you might suspect, people don't know as much about the local folks. So I think they're more susceptible to a last minute advertising push. If there's one commercial that says, this is who that person is and this is who we say you should vote for, I think that means more in a local race, because a lot of times it's just a name on a line to you. You haven't seen a national story about them from MSNBC or CNN or something.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that story on the Majority Report today. That story is from The Intercept on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I just don't think that they were talking about six figures. I mean, Omar's raised $6.4 million. I mean, and also Emma made a very good point after I was on the air about how both Summer Lee and Ilhan Omar were part of, were state representatives, and so they have that kind of built-in cachet of people knowing them, to where Bowman and Bush were not. They just ran right away for federal congressional seats, and they won, which is great, and they've been great, as Congress people. But I mean, it's just so I mean, that's an excellent point. I mean, so I guess she put it up as a tweet after I said it. The institutional support. So yeah, excellent point, Emma.
I think other candidates need to take note. If you want to jump right in and go for a House seat or Senate, okay, fine. But if you want to start out locally and work your way up, that might behoove you.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree.
You know who did that? DSA candidate in Georgia. Name's escaping me. I had him on the show.
Was it Gabe Voss? Not Gabe Voss, because he's the guy in the second district of North. But
Sanchez? Is it Gabriel Sanchez?
I think that's right. Right. Yeah.
Same deal. He was well known. People knew him. He won that primary, and I mean, he was well known. He had been involved in.
Yeah.
He had that institutional support. So there you go. It's a great point.
Yeah. That is right. Because I still got your Twitter thing. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, I think I'm just looking at some, if any of the races, because Vermont and Connecticut they've already have some results coming in, because they're in the Eastern time zone. I just don't see any people who are challenging. Yeah, I don't see anybody. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, Chris Murphy, the senator, nobody's running against him. In the primary, nobody's running against any of the Democratic House seats. There's 5 of them. The only one is a Republican seat in the 4th district. So I mean, that kind of makes me sad, because I do feel like that people need to run against the, especially if they're centrist Democrats or conservative Democrats. So I wish they would run. I mean, I'm always trying to encourage people to run. I mean, just get that issue set out. I mean, talk about all the things that are necessary, like I spoke about earlier, that Bernie and the squad have always harped on, which are absolutely essential to make this world, a better place, in the coming years.
That's true. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm of the belief that if you are a centrist Democrat trying to primary a progressive, you're not doing it because of some belief about politics. You're doing it because you want a job, you want the power. Whereas if it's the other way around, you're probably fighting this uphill battle because you believe in something. And I was just gonna say that, hey, get greedy, progressives. When the next time this comes around, understand that apart from all the important things which we talk about, it's also a real nice job. Pays pretty decent.
Yeah.
Go get yourself get employed by the federal government and the people. And by the way, while you're there, just don't be a corrupt centrist who's selling our future to the oil companies. That's it.
Yeah, I think if you want to be in politics, be in politics. Get in there and treat it. Look, there's a lot you can learn from street gangs, okay? You get in wherever you can, low level, do whatever you got to do, and work your way up. It's that easy. They call it, in the corporate world, they call it climbing the ladder. No. You pay your dues, you do the grunt work, and then you earn the respect of your of your colleagues and your constituents, and you work your way up. It's that easy. It's not this greedy thing where you just have your eyes on the prize. No, you do your job where you're at, and then you work your way up. It's just that simple.
I just wish we knew somebody that could. I was just gonna say, I just wish we knew somebody that could explain to us what it's like to try to run in one of these things.
It's like if we could just bring somebody on real quick who could like give us some unique perspective. Yeah. Oh, wait, hey, what's up, Annie Fitzgerald of Washington's 38? How's it going? Good to see you.
Hi, I just wanted to pop on for a quick minute.
Yeah, now let me just say, sorry we had to get off the air before we saw all of your results, but you did well. You got on the ballot, right? And so this is awesome. So we wanted to give you a chance to come on and tell us exactly what's up. And I'm going to show a tweet of yours while you talk. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So things went pretty good. I ended up with 19.96% of the vote. So I made my goal of getting over 5,000 votes. And I'm super pleased about that. And here's the crazy thing. So my incumbent has massively outraised me, right?
Yeah, right.
I got this far. I got through the primary on a $750 budget. So
that's impressive, though. I think that's very impressive. Good for you.
Imagine what this gal can do if we fund her.
Just think about it. With 7,000 or more, just imagine. So okay, go ahead.
So that's something I'm really proud of. Because the whole time, I'm doing this, the whole time I'm trying to fundraise, I'm just like, bare knuckling it, hoping that I have enough to do what I need to do to get through the primary. And, honestly, places like the Letterhack really helped me get to this point. I have to give a shout out to Left Past 10, the Letterhack, all the places that have allowed me to come on and talk and share a little bit about my campaigning experience. And the other thing is like I did all of this like as a disabled person with limited mobility. And like I'm just kind of like looking back and thinking like, oh my gosh, it was so hard and like it took so much work, but I'm so proud of like how far I've been able to come, as well as like I'm really proud of like my volunteers that helped me get to this point, because like I've had quite a few people reach out from my community, but I've also received help from people online as well. So that has really made a substantial difference. And
I mean, I'm glad to let you keep thanking me over and over. No problem. But are you now trying to get to a certain number, or is it like, just give me the cash, whatever you can afford, throw it this way, everything helps?
Just whatever people can afford, if everyone could send like $25, that would make a huge difference. Yeah. And before I go, there's one other thing I just wanted to mention to people real quick. So on April 15th, here in my backyard, there was a protest at SeaTac Airport to protest Israeli aid, and a bunch of people were arrested. They managed to slow down airport operations for over 5 hours. And a bunch of people were arrested. And ever since, they have been facing just awful injustices. They've been denied proper representation, denied attorneys. Prosecutors have been inconsistent in following this. I did send a few Instagram links to to the Letterhack about this, but
I should be bringing them up. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, yes, yes, you should. So there was a press conference this morning, and basically there was a press conference because there was a hearing this morning, and these brave 46 people that have faced charges stood up for what's right. They stood up for Palestine. They really they shut things down at the airport, which is amazing because I mean we've talked in the past about how real protests are not about upholding the status quo. They're about disrupting the status quo and getting people's attention, and they managed to do that. And I'm just flabbergasted at what they've been going through the last few months. Is they have been facing what they've been going through. So I encourage everyone, if you're interested in helping out, check out the Instagram post on the screen right now, and consider calling in to the numbers that are listed, because these people deserve to be acquitted and released.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is, you know what? We've been asking people a lot lately. Get on the phones. Donate if you can. Support however you can. Prop people up. This is it. This is being involved, right? It's like, Annie, you are so courageous for running for office. And we are all so proud of your efforts. Like, don't thank me. I should be thanking you, truly, because you are doing this for people like me and everybody else out there. And it is a big, big deal. And so it's the least folks can do to help you out. And this is the thing. Look at you taking time. You stop talking about yourself and started talking about something else, right? That's important to you, and that should be important to everybody else, and probably is. That's what we're looking for in a candidate. That's what we're looking for in elected officials. People who will continue to promote important causes outside of their own race. You're not just here doing self-promotion. And that's the key, because it's like John and Jake and I have been saying on these coverages, these election coverage nights, where we're saying, okay, maybe they don't win, but they kept the policies that we need in the public eye. Do you know what I mean? Like, your ticket and your campaign is doing everything to promote sensible policies like Medicare for all or whatever it may be. And so anyway, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. It's a big deal.
Aw, thanks. Yeah, I'm really trying to do this because I really care about my community. I care what's going on about my community. That's why I brought up these 46 brave individuals that have just been going through a lot the last few months since they protested, and they deserve community support. So,
hallelujah.
So what happens next for your campaign? What's our next thing that we're trying to win? It's the whole enchilada, isn't it?
Yeah. We're moving on to November, and I am ecstatic. I'm ecstatic to finally start breaking down my incumbents' voting choices and policies, and exposing them for what they really are. And
I'd like to point out, on a related note, even if you don't win, if people give you enough money to buy TV ads, radio ads, this gives you an opportunity to push that person left because they're getting heat from the left. So every time you're donating to Annie Fitzgerald, you are affecting, whether she wins or not, and we hope she wins because, wow, But whether she wins or not, you're going to be making an impact. Consider that and look at what's down below.
Great.
Your dollars
And
will make a direct difference.
Great point.
yeah, and also, consider the work that I am working on right now to build the progressive alternative slate in Washington State as well. I'm going to continue that work whether I win or not. That is something that is incredibly important to me. And I have the knowledge, I have the experience now to be like, man, like, if only I had had help with X, Y, and Z, I could have done better, or I could have accomplished this goal. And now that I kind of have some of that experience under my belt, I can learn from that to support future progressive candidates in the state of Washington. And that's my goal.
Heck
so thank you.
That's great. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for calling in. We're all really proud of you. We'll have you back on. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back on either here or Let Past 10 to keep talking about your campaign and giving us updates. So thanks very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much again. And I'm taking a little break right now, but
do it.
I'm gonna need volunteers and stuff pretty soon. So please consider shooting a donation my way, or reaching out to me through my website or Twitter or whatever, and let me know if you want to help out, because I'm gonna need help with like text banking and stuff like that pretty soon. So
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, take care. That's good stuff, right?
Yeah,
See?
definitely. That's what you love to see. I mean, on every different level, like I was saying, there's two great DSA candidates that are, who are city council people in San Antonio, and so I'm used to seeing that. Who and we follow each other on Twitter and everything, and they're very hardworking, and that's fantastic to see.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I just love it.
I know. I feel good.
It's so cool.
Like,
yeah,
I feel nice now.
Yeah, I know. It's like, see, we have wins. We gotta count the wins. Doesn't matter how great or small they are. A win is a win.
All right, let's keep it going. Speaking of, I'm going to shout out on Letterhack's channel now. Thank you, Anti-Corporatist, Pinkerbell, Donald James X. Those three signed up to volunteer for Jen Perlman's campaign.
Yes.
Bada boom.
Those are good ones. I approve of them. I think they're going to do a good job.
I do too.
That's great. Okay.
Unfortunately, I also signed up to volunteer.
Come on, you're good.
Hopefully, they'll balance out the harm I do.
Whoever you call is going to think they hired somebody professional, like an actor or something, because your voice is going to be way too. You're going to have to tone it down a little.
They're going to think the Republicans did. I'll be like, all right, listen, you bum. I can't believe I have to explain this to you, but here we go.
Yeah. They're going to hear that mustache through the phone. Okay. Okay. Quick recap. As we wait for results to come in, let's recap where we are currently. Over the last couple of weeks, two squad members, Jamal Bowman and Corey Bush, have lost their primary elections. MAGA Republicans and right-wing mega donors, along with AIPAC and via their various super PACs, who committed to spend $100 million worth of interference in primaries against progressives and successfully unseating the two I just mentioned, members of the squad, spending a total of $35 million combined. But after making those two races the first and second most expensive House primaries ever, and since they have been since then, they have been openly targeting Ilhan Omar, as we were saying. Not quite the same, though. So, John, do I have that correct in terms of most expensive House races of all time?
Yeah, that is correct. I think I'm trying to remember if that total is actually spent yeah, I mean, I think that's right on the total. Would you say 35 million, right? I think that's correct. I mean, Bowman did both of Bowman and Bush raised, millions themselves, and they did have, people like the Working Families Party and people like that support them with millions also. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that they usually say, the most from both sides, but yeah, there's no doubt that most of the money was spent, by AIPAC splinter groups against them.
I wonder, is this a stretch? You tell me. So AIPAC, its allies, these coalitions with Trump donors,
Mhm.
those guys are in bed with neo-Nazis. Is any Democrat taking money from them also by association, taking support from neo-Nazis, white supremacists, nationalists?
Yeah, tons of them are. I mean, the fact that tons of people actually support AIPAC is terrible. It's absolutely horrible, and I think that they've touched on this. George Latimer touched on that in the debates that we played. Because he said he named all of these people, Gregory Meeks and I think Grace Ming, and all these people who are actually Congress people who live in the New York City area. A lot of them in Queens. The ones I mentioned from Queens. Obviously, Hakeem Jeffries is the same way. This is. When I was looking up the Rebecca Cook and one of the organizations that she has, she's taking money from. I was looking that up, and it's a very much a pro-Israeli PAC, and they've given a lot of money, and so this is actually a very common thing, and this is something that the Democrats really have to deal with. Is that because look at Joe Biden himself. Sam and them talk about this all the time about he's a Zionist, to the core of his soul, and that's created so many problems for him. Especially among younger voters. There's been a lot of weird things with polling, because some of the, let's say, the 19 to 30-year-olds, in some of the, like, if they do internet panels, they have similar leads to what he had in 2020, but some of them who are more phone polls, which aren't accurate, especially among people that age, but their results from that, was that Trump was actually leading. And so, it seems weird that, like, okay, you're going to actually vote for Trump over Biden, but it just kind of like, there's a lot of disgust for what Biden has done on his policy on the genocide in Gaza, and so among younger voters, and that is the key constituency that any Democrat has to win, because I know I've said this a million times, but
You've been right every time.
Yeah, well, it's just based on exit polls, which will tell you that essentially among older voters, that it's essentially kind of a toss-up. And actually, let's say some of the polls that I've seen recently actually had voters over 65 seem to have, or supporting Trump more so this year than in 2020, which is pretty sad because it was like a plus 12. But then you have, let's say, voters between 45 and 65, and it's about even. And so what really led Biden to victory was these incredible, 20-point margins, and even more in some of the swing states among younger voters. And so instead of catering to those voters, and he did to some degree, he tried to like do student loans, and then the courts, all the Republican courts said, nah, we're not going to let you do that. And but he did try, because in the primaries he was like poo-pooing everything in 2020 about younger voters. He just he didn't want to deal with them. He was being negative towards them, and I was just thinking how are you going to win if you're not addressing this? That's what you have to win. I mean, because all these other people, who are my age or around my age, or around. I mean, I don't know. I think Jake, you're a little bit younger than Matt and I are, but I mean, they still believe in all this kind of trickle down economics, and it's really sad that you look at polling and that's what you see consistently. And it really is sad that they still believe that. But I mean, and so many other centrist things that centrists believe in, really. Yeah. But I mean, that's just kind of the way it is.
First of all, my doctor says I have the heart of an older man, so I thought that was very touching.
I can see that,
and chose not to listen to anything else he was saying. And I think you're right, and I just want to reiterate that I also don't understand what it is he's thinking. When I don't know what's with this tendency of specifically centrist Dems to pretend like young folks aren't crucial to them. I think maybe when they do that, it's because they know that they will not ultimately be appealing to those folks. They won't be doing policy that those folks will be pleased with. But it's just perplexing, man. I hope we're in a new generation. I think Kamala Harris is actually changing that. I get the feeling she gets it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to respond?
Well, I hope she does. I mean, I've seen some of the policy stuff she put out. I didn't care for, but I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, you can express your opinions and say that's not good, and I definitely encourage that to do, and that's what the one thing about the Majority Report is that they do that. They talk about whether I mean, obviously people are going to vote against Trump. I mean, that's negative partisanship rules the day. But it's also say here. I mean, we don't agree with that policy, and hope you change it. And and so I think that's really important.
Speaking of Majority Report, I thought personally that you had a great call today, John. That was sensational. As contentious as it remains to me, I'm speaking for myself here. I don't want to speak for you guys, although I'm sure you do agree. But John, did you get everything? Like normally you have like a lengthy, take on the primaries and the state of progressive campaigns. Was there anything else that you didn't get to that maybe you want to talk about now?
Yeah, I actually had a 3-page.
There you go.
Like I usually do. I usually have about a 3-page script that I have written down. I've never actually read it because obviously my calls are on the phone.
Yeah, how do you do it? Are you reading it on speakerphone? Do you use a headset?
No, I'm no, I'm just reading it on the phone. And so I guess I'll do that now because I did mention it on social media. So yeah, because I thought that I think I said this on Twitter that I thought that it was going to be that they were going to have more calls about Michael because they had done that in the past, but I guess there's a little bit of a change this year, and so they just took my call was the only call that they took all day. Super enthusiastic. They're really happy about that I'm going to be able to call in on Tuesday until the election. So really happy that Sam's letting me do that, and so looking forward to that. So here's actually. And so then I abbreviated my call. So here's actually my call in full from what I wrote down. So it says, so tonight is the last defense of a squad seat in the primaries, and I'll be on the be on the Letterhack show, which we're all listening to now. So
I approve, by the way.
So in 2022, AIPAC Splinter Group spent a lot of money near the end of the race running negative ads against Omar, and it almost worked. Even though polls had Omar up by 20 points, she only won by 2 points over Don Samuels in the Minnesota 5th District federal congressional race. In 2022, the big issue was crime and how each candidate was going to deal with policing issues. This year, Samuels is back for a rematch, but Omar has raised $6.4 million, and AIPAC splinter groups have not spent that much money, according to a piece published in the Intercept on Sunday. Wealthy individuals who support Israel and don't recognize the humanity of Palestinians are making a last-minute push by spending six figures to help unseat Omar, but I doubt that'll have any impact. Once again, the polling has Omar up by 27 points in a poll conducted from July 17th through the 21st with veteran pollster Celinda Lake that was commissioned by the Omar campaign. In late February, Samuels commissioned his own poll that had Omar up by 19 points. Omar has been one of the most outspoken voices concerning the genocide in Gaza and other progressive causes since her election in 2018. If you live in Minnesota's 5th District, I encourage you to vote for Ilhan Omar, and she's still got about 30 minutes left, or something like that, and 17 minutes left. And so I'm expecting a great victory tonight, and hopefully we'll see that soon. So there are two constitutional amendments that voters will be voting on in Wisconsin. The first one deals with the delegation of the appropriations power. So it's going to be shall Section 35 of Article 4 of the Constitution be created to provide that the legislature may not delegate to its sole power to determine how monies will be appropriated. The second one says allocation of federal monies shall Section 35 of Article 4 of the Constitution be created to prohibit the governor from allocating any federal monies the governor accept on behalf of the state without the approval of the legislature by joint resolution or as provided by a legislative rule. So a yes vote supports amending the state constitution to require legislature approving a joint resolution before a governor can expend federal money appropriated by the state. And a no vote opposes this amendment, thereby allowing the governor to accept and allocate federal funds without seeking legislature approval. So if you're a resident of Wisconsin, you have to ask yourself if Democratic Governor Tony Evers was not in office, would this vote take place? And the answer is no. So I recommend voting no on both of these constitutional amendments. And again, you got about 16 minutes to vote in those races. Let's see. So we're dealing with. So when Sam had, so again, I was going to address Sam about this issue, and also I did mention a lot of this stuff in passing because when I just had my one paragraph synopsis of what this call was essentially going to be, then he asked me questions afterwards that essentially mostly about all of them were about the Omar race, and so I think I touched upon things that I had said in my longer piece. So when Sam had on Seth Fleischer and Emily Baldwin 8 days ago, who are the co-founders of the political action organization Walk the Walk, they mentioned a district that has one of the greatest political impacts compared to other districts, and they mentioned the 3rd congressional district race in Wisconsin. Well, they'll be holding primaries tonight. This is a district that Trump won by 4.7%, with the current incumbent Republican Derek Van Orden won by 3.7% in 2022. It includes the cities of Eau Claire, La Crosse, and Stevens Point, as well as the exurbs of the Minnesota St. Paul metropolitan area. The most progressive candidate is in the Democratic primary is Eric Watson. He supports a ceasefire in Gaza, Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, student loan forgiveness, and other progressive values. Unfortunately, Watson has only raised $45,000 by the end of June. Another Democrat running is Katrina Shanklin, who's a member of the Wisconsin Assembly. She has raised $880,000 at the end of June. She touts her record of working with Republicans to pass bills in the Assembly. Shanklin has a lot of support from unions and backs many typical Democratic issues like women's reproductive health, public housing, public education, rather, etc. And she is supported by progressive Congressman Mark Pocan, who represents the Madison area. So the leading fundraiser in the race is Rebecca Cook. She espouses centrist Democrat values, which can be good in many circumstances, has some union support, but she also is backed by many conservative Democrats, including the Blue Dog PAC and the Jewish Democratic Council of America, which proclaims to have pro-Israel values. Cook has raised $2 million by the end of June and is the favorite in the race. So my question is, if you lived in Wisconsin's 3rd district, would you vote for the strongest progressive, who is Wilson, though he's raised very little money and has a tiny chance of winning, or would you support Shanklin, who is a chance because she has raised a good deal of money and has union support? And if this district was a +10 Trump district, would you feel any differently? So instead of Sam and Emma answering this, I guess y'all can answer it.
All right. I would go as progressive as possible because I don't believe that those unions, if they are in fact in their right minds, are going to say, well, we're not going to support this candidate, this progressive. As far as the raising of money goes, I do think that's a serious concern. It's not nothing, but I don't think it beats their political stances. So if they need to get better at raising money, then they just have to get better at raising money. But we first and foremost need good, solid progressives every place we can get them. So yes, I'm going with the progressive.
Yeah, I do feel awkward, like promoting raising a lot of money, and this is the game. I get it, but don't you guys feel like everyone's like, oh, you can't trust the polls until they start seeing polls in their favor or polls that make them nervous, and then they're like, look at these fucking polls, and then like when we're all like, we got to get money out of politics. Look at how much money we're raising. Like, I get it. It's in context of this needs to happen now because this is how we keep winning. But I want more campaigning to change this the way it is. I don't know.
Messages. I think messages have their own. They have their own popularity. You know, you raise money to try to get a person popular, but the message themselves has a kind of popularity.
And this is why I want progressives to win, because they will keep that going. They will, Omar will outraise her opponent and then she'll win. And then she'll promote getting money out of politics, right? Like this is the more progressives we have, the more likely we'll see change.
All I'm saying is I think $5 of advertising for a message that says get big money out of politics is going to resonate with more people than $500 in advertising for a vague political message that doesn't actually promise any change.
Yeah. And so, I'd vote for the progressive every time.
Yeah. I mean, I see your point. I think Sam would say actually vote for not the moderate, but I mean, because I think she is, more than a moderate, Shanklin is. As far as union support, I think unions want to support a winner. And so, I mean, because Wilson had no union support, even though, if you actually broke down his policies, he would probably be the most supportive of unions and the other people. So, I mean, I understand both sides. I mean, the whole idea of strategic voting, like I do disagree with Sam because sometimes he'll say, this voting is not your personal choice. And I disagree with that. Like, let's say like the next week, the race between Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Jen Perlman, there's 2 Democrats running. So, I mean, it's either vote for Westerman Schultz or vote for Perlman. And so it's like, my values say vote for Perlman. And so it's like, I would vote for Perlman, I mean, there's no question.
Yeah.
But once you throw something like another wrench in there, because there's a possibility that Shanklin can actually win this seat, like that. I said that was the difference between having, let's say, a plus, 4.7 Trump district that the actual congressman only won by 3.7, or saying if it's a 10-point lead. Because if it's a 10-point lead, there's really no chance that a Democrat's going to win. So in that case, I understand the thing, like, okay, I'm just going to vote my conscience, because there's no chance that the Democrat's going to win. That's what I feel, and that's kind of how it goes. And so yeah.
Fair enough.
What do you think about Jen Perlman's chances?
I hope she does well. I like her issue set. I mean, I know she ran in 2020. I think she got 26% of the vote that year. I mean, I hope she can get to 35.
I mean, she lost by 45 points last time.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's important. I mean, also certain districts are just conservative, and that's I think that a lot of people don't kind of understand that, like, it's really important to like deal with your constituents, and it just doesn't happen that often where somebody can be like super progressive in an area that just isn't progressive at all. And it's just,
I have feelings on that in particular, though, because I think that's a bit of a mirage created by the Democratic Party. I have not seen evidence, and you're the evidence guy, so I'm sure I'm about to get corrected justly here. I'm a big boy, I can take it. But I have not seen evidence that the political leanings of these deep red districts mean that if you're running a Democrat against them, the way to go is centrist. I've seen the opposite. I've seen that if you are in a deep red district, you have a better chance running a fire and brimstone progressive type in terms of how much the people like them. But what happens is Democrats don't fund that. They fund centrists, if anybody.
No, I agree that they do fund them, but I mean, you see race after race, and it's I mean, I'm just going by what the results say. And also they have to answer to constituents. Like let's say Mark Kelly. I mean, I know some people, that I know like Mark Kelly, and I mean, he has some good points, he actually has a better voting record than I thought. But, he has to answer to his constituents who are generally more conservative. I mean, that's a super swingy state. I mean, and so he gets letters all the time from conservatives saying, you're a piece of whatever, and like, how can you support the Democratic Party? And he has to be aware of that. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the way he should be. I'm just saying, the evidence behind it is pretty overwhelming. I mean, I'd love to see somebody, come up and prove me wrong. And I think sometimes that has happened. So, for example, in the 28th District of Texas, everybody thought that this is Henry Cuellar's district, who's under indictment right now. Everybody thought that this was a conservative district that was, that the progressives had no chance of winning in. So yet when Jessica Cisneros ran, she ran twice, in 2020 and in 2022. And the second time that she ran, she was like within 300 votes in the runoff, and it was super close. I mean, and so that was great. And this other candidate in the 15th district, also another young woman, Michelle Vallejo, and she was a progressive, Bernie supported her, and she ran against all these centrists, and she won. She won that race. And this is like a +3 Trump district, so it's the closest race, House race, and it still is in Texas. And so she did lose by 8 points in a very bad, uh, showing for all across the board. Everyone in the South, with the exception of the Warnock race, did very poorly in 2022, and she was part of that. Like I said, she lost by 8 points. But yeah, I mean, 2018 was also like a big year where progressives ran in more races than they have ever done before. This is, right after the Bernie run in 2016, and there were progressives running in, like, conservative districts. There were progressives running, in more liberal districts, and some of them did pretty well in conservative districts. None of them really won, but it was like, yeah, it's great to see that they're trying and that they're, finishing, let's say, third or fourth in a like, because there was tons of races. There were like 8 different Democratic candidates. And it does make me sad that you just don't see that anymore at all. You didn't see it like I was just looking in Connecticut. Nobody ran against the incumbents, no one. And so I'm glad that, there are 3 candidates running in the 3rd district at 3 kind of different levels. Of course, I'd love to see the progressive win. I wish he could have raised more than $50,000. I mean, because his issue set is great, and I wish he, I wish he kind of lived in Madison or in Milwaukee. Even though they're, Mark Pocan and Gwen Moore are good. I think Eric Wilson, would probably have been a better candidate than Gwen Moore, but I mean, she's okay. I mean,
If the progressive does win, do you think the Democratic Party swoops in and helps them raise more, or do they turn around and say, nope, let's teach the progressives a lesson, you're on your own, get ready to lose?
No, I think they would support them because the race for the House is so close right now. It's just essentially 221 votes to 214. So all the Democrats really need to flip are 4 seats. And so like every seat is going to be super tight. And it's like, so they would really be supportive. I wish I could say that there were like, because I've already looked into all of these seats, and this is what happens when you're looking at House races to see who's going to flip these seats. They're just not progressives, because all the progressives are the ones that win their seats easily. Like Ilhan Omar is going to win easily. AOC is going to win easily. Ayanna Pressley. I mean, Rashida. I mean, Greg Kazar. All of these people are going to win, by 40, 50 points. I mean, Summer Lee did only, I think, win by, 18 last time, or may have been even closer to that. It may have been as close as 12. I have to double check that. But yeah, I mean,
my opening credits.
That
was such an impressive victory and unexpected.
Yeah.
Or I should just mention it is 9 p.m., 8 p.m. Central. The polls have closed, so we will be keeping an eye on the results starting now. Quick question. Let's just use Jen Perlman as an example. She is fierce. She is outspoken, does not pull punches. Exactly what we're looking for in somebody trying to primary the likes of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. If she doesn't win, what should she do? Any recommendations or suggestions for what she does next? Because we want to keep her in the fight, right?
Yeah, keep running. She ran in 2020, and now she's running again in 2024. I mean, she's coming on your show. I remember Sam interviewed her on when he was still doing Ring of Fire in 2020.
Oh, man.
And so yeah, I mean, she's got a great issue set. I agree with her on policy. So just keep running, keep her. I mean, I know she does a podcast with her husband.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just keep running, keep your issue sets out there, and just don't back down from your issue set. So
Once
Yeah,
again, go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly, I love that she has a podcast where she keeps the issues out there and she keeps engaging with other candidates and people in the the industry, so to speak. Go ahead, Jake.
Just once again, Bernie leading the charge, and inexplicably Jehovah's Witnesses also leading the charge with using technology as it becomes available. I think everybody, if you care enough to run for office, sign up for a free YouTube channel. It costs you nothing. In the 80s, you would have needed $100,000 and a contract with a satellite company to get this kind of reach. Just do that and make sure that your videos can be shared by everybody. Turn off all those features that let you automatically block. Don't do that. Do what Bernie's doing. He literally has a YouTube channel, a Reddit page. It's just the easiest thing in the world to put your thoughts into a microphone. And if you're running for office, you got a chance to get an audience who's interested, an active audience. Are y'all right with me with showing those two pictures that I dropped in there?
Yeah. Do you want to just do them in order? You want me to bring these up?
Yeah, because I'd like John's thoughts on this, because this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. There's the Democratic primary election results, and all those counties in green voted for Bernie. And then you look at this is in the Democratic primary, understandably,
which he won.
Absolutely. Now look at the next one. This is the presidential election results. Notice all those red counties voted for Trump. Now I realize that's the Democratic primary in counties that leaned Republican, but you see in those counties which Democrat was more popular, and it was the person who was viewed as more progressive. I find that tends to be the trend no matter where you go. Even when it's somebody like John Fetterman, he was viewed as being this big progressive guy. I find that the message of progressives, because it has, I think, more honesty to it, resonates better with traditionally red voters. And in this era where we have a lot of frustrated Republican voters, I think progressives have the message that will win them over. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Bernie really did capture that better than any other progressive. I think that some of the other like squad members, I think that sometimes that they get into cultural values, and I mean, you've got to. I mean, unfortunately, what is really preached on conservative media is this kind of white nationalism. And so, so Bernie was a white guy. I mean, a white Jewish guy, but I mean, they really kind of, and he was also an older guy, and so as a percentage, older voters vote at higher percentages than younger voters. I mean, and it's that way all over the world. That's not just something that happens in America. I mean, you get Scandinavian countries, Western European countries that have much higher voting percentages, though America really is improving. I think it was 67%, 2 out of 3 eligible voters did vote in the 2020 election, which is the best since 1900 as far as presidential elections, which is great. And this started improving in the 2004 election, and I believe that it was because of the Iraq War. I know that Sam has a different opinion on this, but I mean, I think that and you look at it, 2008 was at its peak where there was maximum anger about the Iraq War, and then 2012 the voting percentage went down. To 2016 it went up again. Unfortunately, I mean, even though Clinton won by more than 3 million votes nationwide, in swing states she did not do well, and then Trump did get more votes than Romney. And then in 2020, Trump had 74 million votes, Biden had 81 million. And so Yeah, but I mean, it was very close in the Electoral College. I think there was less than 44,000 votes would have flipped in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Trump would have won the election, even though he had, well, at that point he would still had 7 million less votes. And so that's an indictment of the electoral college system. But it's also saying there's a lot of Trump support out there. So unfortunately, and so like when people were saying, that interview with Musk, that's the end. I'm pretty skeptical of that. I mean, it's unfortunately, the mind of a person in a cult. It's going to take a lot more than that to get them out of that mindset. And so,
but when it comes to winning over those people that you might be able to win over from Republicans, my only thought here is that I actually think the progressives have a progressive candidate has a better chance, even when it just comes to they're in front of a podium, they're giving their 30-second pitch for why you should vote for them. I think the progressive has a chance of actually getting people to vote for them, whereas the best a centrist Democrat could hope for is somebody saying, "Well, I guess I'll stay home."
Here's what irritates me. This kind of shit. Harris says Trump will repeal Obamacare. Trump now claims he'll make it better. What kind of a headline is that?
Yeah.
For a population of people who only read headlines, what are you doing? Oh,
yes.
Trump says they'll make it better.
New York Times. Yeah. New York Times is the worst. I mean, they really usually what I do in election years is I'll I won't subscribe usually, but okay, it's an election year. I want to see what they're saying about this year. I haven't done that. I mean, there's just nothing. I mean, their coverage is just so bad. It's terrible. It is absolutely horrible. And I mean, Washington Post isn't any better. I mean, they just don't have, very good writers, and their editorial is just, I mean, it's worse than ever. And it's just hard for me to take them seriously. And I don't read them. I mean, and, I mean, I feel to a certain degree, I feel like maybe I'm missing out, but I mean, am I really, And so, I mean,
How do you feel though, John? Because I saw you commenting on a CNN report on Twitter.
Yeah.
And you said these are pertinent facts. And
Right.
I always assume that, and it does feel like this, but I'm relying on your expertise here. I feel like the CNN gang are saying, let's take these facts, which are pertinent, put them together to make good television. Is Trump really popular? More popular than in 2016 and 2020? Are we supposed to assume that we're underestimating his numbers based on that popularity? Because why is he popular now? Surely he's not popular for the same reasons he was in previous elections, right? Or am I wrong?
No, I think he's not. He's popular. More popular now is because he hasn't been in the public eye. So in 2016, there was this initial revulsion for Trump. It's like, how could this guy even be a candidate? Like he's awful, and it's like, oh, he's terrible. But he ended up winning, and so. So I mean, the revulsion was there, but he still won. And then in 2020, it was like this guy. I mean, 2018 was really like the big. Even though Trump wasn't on the ballot, it was let's reject Republicans. So at that point, the highest vote total in a House election by a single party was 44 million that the Republicans had. And that's not good. It's less than 1% of the vote, and it's hopefully that's going to be in the rural areas. But yeah, so I mean, I'm trying to remember the exact total. I think it was in the last 11 of 15 statewide elections in Wisconsin, Democrats have won. And so one of them that they didn't win was the Ron Johnson race. I think you're talking about let's say Supreme Court races and all of the other statewide races in 2022 were 2022 was a good year for Democrats and in swing states. Unfortunately, Ron Johnson won, and that may be one of the the tipping point election, because if the Democrats, if the Republicans, they win that tester seat, they're going to win in West Virginia. And if let's say what's her name, the candidate in Florida, Debbie Mercasal Powell, doesn't win, and most people don't think she is going to win. I think the latest poll had her down by 4. Then Republicans are going to hold the Senate, and so that's going to be difficult to deal with. It'll be 51-49, and so we'll see. But
do you want to take a closer look at some of the? It looks like just one county reporting in for those. Here, we can look at these individually.
Let's see.
So it's just one county, 60-40 split. I don't know if that's rural or not, but I don't think so.
Okay, it's
less than
it is. It's Waukesha County. I think there was actually like this is a west of Milwaukee. I'm pretty sure this is a Republican county. There was actually I think a terrorist attack or maybe it was a mass shooting in this county. Trying to remember exactly. Yeah, that's so let's see all the votes are coming from there. It's only 8% of the total in that county. So one thing that's important is that Wisconsin and Minnesota have 2 of the highest percentages of voters in the country, just as a percentage voting. Maybe I can look this up. I think that they may be 1 and 2. Let me see if I can find this. But
our guy Tyler Hackner is on the ground in Minnesota, reporting that polls have indeed closed.
Yeah. So it's been if you're in line a minute beforehand.
Wicked reporter Tyler Hackner.
Yeah. So
the other hack. I hate that there are so many Republicans. Okay, look, on the one hand, these people have been duped. I want to undupe them. I can't stand it. It drives me mad to think of how easily tricked they have been. On the other hand, I can't stop thinking about, I think the guy's name was Rusty or Russell or something. The guy who testified against Trump at the January 6th hearings.
Rusty Bowers.
Yes, and right after they said, but would you vote for him? He goes, yeah.
He did change his mind, but that's so fucking annoying.
He did change his mind because
eventually.
He was specific about if he runs against Biden, I will vote for Trump. But why did he change his mind? In what regard? Because he's like, it's not Biden anymore.
If Rusty Bowers is the guy that we're thinking of, because people came out and threatened his family, so he's just.
Oh geez, and then he changed it. Well, I don't really like that, but
the guy that factors into the
right
same
thing.
Yeah, I've been sitting here ripping what's left of my hair out because why after 2003 has anybody voted for a Republican? Like it dawned on me very recently that I've been wasting a ton of time on my show when we're talking about Republicans and like convincing them this way or that. I think we tend to unduly give them the credit we would give a progressive or even a Democrat, where we say like, well, you just need another graph. You just need another you just need more information. No, we need to deal, I think, with the very basics when it comes down to this. We cannot allow the conversation to go past January 6th. Step 1, are you on board with a traitor or not? If you say he's not a traitor, we need to talk until you understand that he is, and that the whatever they call it, what San Francisco sweep, I forget what it's called. But they put fake electors in place. They lie. Similarly with Republicans, when just broadly speaking, why are we still dealing with this party at all? What good have they ever done for anybody? Trickle down economics clearly does not work. All this time where they've been getting credit for being good with the economy, well, now we see that they in fact never were. Not only that they aren't now, but they never were. So if you used to believe that they were, and you used to vote as though you believe that's true, now you know you were voting against your own interests. I think we need to have a series of conversations with people with varying degrees of rationality, where we just, one at a time, get them to acknowledge that the Republicans are not a serious option if you have a desire to help the country.
Progressives need to provide tips and strategies for messaging to the Democrats. We need to unite specifically on that. You guys want to know how to win? Let's get the message out there. It can't just be Republicans bad, Trump bad. It should be they don't do anything. They get nothing done. They accomplish nothing that progresses or moves us forward or helps anyone. It holds us back, and we're talking about tax cuts for the rich, all that stuff. But the good that the Democrats have done, the good that progressives have done, we need to stop. Look, it's the Democrats coming after the progressives most of the time. So I'm not going to be the first one to unilaterally disarm, but we need to find common ground despite, primaries and who should be, primary incumbents when, right? Because it's okay when the incumbent's a progressive, but not when it's not a progressive. But we have got to help these guys with their messaging, because if we're going to if we're going to get people to realize that the Republicans are worthless, that's how we do it, is through touting our own accomplishments.
And we just, talking directly to Republican voters as well. There's no reason we should leave that conversation with anybody voting Republican.
Yeah, I loved it when Bernie did that Fox town hall, that Fox News town hall. I was like, this should be weekly.
Yeah, just multiply that experience by every possible platform we can get on, and just pitch to these people. How are we going to make your lives better? How have they failed to? Everything we have to say bears out with the facts. It bears out. You don't need to skew things. You don't need to dance around. It's why Bernie Sanders was perfect for this. He has no patience for that nonsense. We just need to keep doing that. And the reason we run into problems with it with the Democrats is because they are trying to fuck us over a little bit. The conservative Democrats are trying to give big tax breaks to the rich and these other things. So they need to engage in these games and obfuscate the reality a little bit more. That's why progressives actually have a message that works. We could just be frank and direct. And I understand that we're not going to get perfect unity with the centrist Dems. They're not going to change what their aims are. But they can focus, and this is partially why I think Kamala Harris is a wise woman. They can focus on those things, those issues that they don't need to bullshit about. And hence they end up coming off and being more progressive.
Here, this is it's a great, hold on. That's great, but here's the one I meant to click. Tim Walz needs to teach Dems a class on how to be a normal person. Now, simply put, Walz he is such a good candidate that I would bet that if he'd run for president in 2019, the Democrats would have crushed him, right?
Yeah.
They would not. Hey, he would have been just a casualty like Bernie Sanders in a way, right? They would have been like, no. You can go.
Gonna leap
What do you
on
think?
it.
I
Am
don't
right?
know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
Please.
I don't know if that's right. I mean, I think that there was some room. I mean, let's face facts though. I mean, Walt is not as progressive as Bernie
That's
or as
true.
any squad member. I mean, he's more. I mean, his voting record in the House, because I follow voting records very closely, and he was in the House for 12 years. It was conservative, and the district that he represented was also conservative, and so. You know, I mean, I didn't when I first heard his name coming up. I mean, I heard all the good things that he did in Minnesota, but I also thought, well, yeah, he's a Democratic governor, and so you know, of course, he's going to sign Democratic legislation, even though there are some Democratic governors, like the governor in Maine, who has vetoed legislation that good legislation in Maine. So I mean, there are exceptions to that, but most people, when they have Democratic legislators and they pass legislation through their uh, through their their votes, and they do sign that. And so, but yeah, but then as a pundit, I mean, as a surrogate, he really is effective.
Now,
And so,
I guess I'm just kind of talking about because I'd never heard of the guy. I admit it. I don't know what his record was. That's why you're here. But I'll admit that any day. But I'm saying current Tim Walz. If he
yeah, no, I
came out
like
like
him.
he is now, they'd be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, this is not."
Yeah, I don't know though. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Because I think that if he ran on his own, I think I don't think he's necessarily that progressive. I think he appeals. I think he's a fighter who's more of a centrist to leaning towards progressivism on like on issues that are social issues. I think like let's say LGBTQ issues. I think he's been really good on those issues, and then just typical democratic issues. I think, I mean, a lot of people don't withhold, I mean, don't really support those values. Some of them do. Okay, so just looking at these Wisconsin, because now we have 4% of the vote in, and I was looking at the Waukesha County, which is looking up the results from 2020, and essentially they're very similar to what happened in the it was like 59% for Biden, for Trump, 39% for Biden, and you're looking at a very similar numbers. I mean, you had some people voting third party in the 2020 election, but it's basically 61-39 now, with 30%, 38% of the vote in. So these are very likely. Fond du Lac is I'm probably not pronouncing it right. Fond du Lac is also coming in at 60-40. Jefferson is at 51-49 for the amendment. And then there's a Vernon County, which I believe is in the third district of Wisconsin, congressional. The federal House seat is heavily, even though only 8%, is heavily 73-27. That's on the first one. And I would imagine that people aren't going to split their votes too much on that. So let me just, so yeah, they're both 59, 40, 41. So right now it looks like that most of these districts are rural districts coming in. And so, I mean, and that's actually typical, because when you live in a rural district, you don't have to stand in line. You just vote, and that's it. I mean, to where when you live in an urban district or even a suburban where more people live, you're gonna have to wait in line. It's sometimes, if you get in line before, uh, you're gonna it's going to take a while to get everything counted. A lot of them,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's just typical. I mean, a lot of people will call it a red mirage or a blue mirage. Essentially, essentially what we're seeing, I think, in this race right now is the red mirage. We're seeing, see, it's already going down at 6%. You have it's already it went down from a 20-point lead into an 8-point lead right now in that particular one. We do have some results from the district that we were speaking about with Rebecca Cook, Katrina Shanklin, and Eric Wilson. And Rebecca Cook, the conservative candidate, is leading by 15 points over the moderate, but second choice in my opinion as far as policy. And Eric Wilson only has 7% of the vote. So I guess that's
Goose looking cooked.
Hey, one thing we like to do here is promote pulling people further left, and politely and strategically and sensibly convincing people to our way of politics. And so I thought maybe I'd put a comment up on the screen from someone new to my chat and see how maybe you guys would respond to something like this. Alfred Delia says, "Am I the only independent that hates this Dem ticket? Waltz was the wrong choice, and what they did to Biden was wrong. So disgusted with the party." What do you think? What do you think, though? How would you respond to this without alienating them?
Well, I don't know about alienating, but I completely disagree. I mean, if he's
Same.
First of all, Biden has no chance to win. From my perspective, my major, just like everybody who is a negative, who believes in negative partisanship. We don't want to see totalitarian government that Trump would have put in place if he wins the election, and especially if Republicans win the House and then win the Senate. And so Biden was on the road to losing, and I was extremely adamant about changing that ticket, and so was Emma. That's what the 2 weeks ago, and when I was on the call with the Majority Report, when I commended Emma on her support, trying to get Biden off the ticket. I think that was the best thing for the country. I think Biden was terrible. People didn't believe in him, and now look at everything's changed. So if you're a centrist and that's what you believe in, you have every right to your opinion. But as far as the way I look at it, I completely disagree with that. I don't, all this talk about it's undemocratic. Biden chose to get off that ticket. He could have been a stubborn old man, and he was until he got out of the ticket. He got off the ticket, and and it was his choice to get off. He could still be in the race right now, but I'll give him credit for being, caring about his country more than his ego, because for
Truly.
months he just kept that ego up there, and he did the best thing. And now look how everything has changed completely. And right now, it's still a coin flip race, but a lot of people have Harris winning the race. And so,
what about the criticism from people like Alfred that they, quote, stole the vote? They were backing Biden, and now that ticket has changed. Go ahead, Jake. What do you think? Is it party over?
I want to point to what John just ended with, because that's it right there. They did no such thing. This could not have happened except that Biden chose to step down. I understand people are angry that he was pressured, but pressured is not the same thing as forced. You cannot force Biden to step down. He chose to. He made a decision. He was the leader of the ticket. That was his right to make, and he made it. I think it was a savvy decision, and that bears out in the polls, because the other person that was on the ticket, Kamala Harris, who was selected specifically to be his replacement in all things, should that happen, is just crushing it. So no, there was no. It was perfectly democratic. It was quite correct.
Look at those results.
Yeah. Can I speak about this third district race? It does not look not great for Katrina Shanklin at all. I mean, 16% of the vote in. She's down double digit in the 4 different counties that have reported. La Crosse, which is I believe the second most populated county, has 16% of the vote in, and she's down. I think that's the closest she's down by double digits, 13 points. I'm glad that in Eau Claire, which is my understanding is the largest county in that district. Let me just check that. But yeah, I'm glad that Wilson is in double digits with 10% and with 69% of the vote in. But yeah, I mean, Shanklin's down by 26 points. And so unfortunately, it looks like the most conservative candidate is going to win in that race. And, you know, I do hope she can. I mean, even though she's conservative, I do hope, you know, it's still going to be as a harm reduction pick. She's still going to be better than the Republican candidate in a quasi swingy district. And so, okay, Shanklin just picked up a few more votes. Now she's still down by 15 points, though, with 36% of the vote in. So that race is probably going to be called within 20 minutes. I mean, if anything, I just don't see them getting anything changing in these rural districts, which will probably or have a tendency to be more conservative, and so they're probably going to call that race pretty soon. So which is unfortunate.
I love seeing John do this. Like, I want to come over on any election night and just sit there and be like, do it, John. I want to watch, man. It's so cool because it's like, we only get to hear about this. Like, this is why I think Sam Cedar should take note of. Okay. We are opening the clock and looking at all the gears. And I think that this sort of thing for any processed nut out there, this is candy. I love this.
It is a bit like watching a pool player, like an expert professional pool player, just line up balls and knock them in one at a time.
That's
how that works. Oh, that's how that works. Neat.
Well, one thing about I was talking about the highest voting as a percentage in the 2020 election, and Minnesota was the highest vote total at 79.4%, and this is voting eligible population. So I mean that's damn good. I mean that's 4 out of 5 people who were eligible to vote actually did vote. And, you know, because, I mean, we hear all about, you know, how America, nobody turns out. And that's a typical thing you hear in Texas is like, Texas is a non-voting state. And it is, because there are, you know, the Texas vote totals were only 61%, which is one of the lowest totals in the country as a percentage. But I mean, 79.4 is the highest in Minnesota, and in Wisconsin. Let's see, I think it's let's see, what is it? Wisconsin, it's 70. Is it? Yeah, 73% or 75%, 75.6%. So again, you're talking about every 3 out of every 4 people are actually voting in the election. So I mean, that's not so bad. I mean, you know, I mean, what's driving that is negative partisanship. I mean, they don't want to see Democrats don't want to see Trump elected. Republicans don't want to see Biden elected or any other Democrat. And you know, it's unfortunate that people aren't saying, "Yeah, I really want to see my candidate win because it's based on issues." You know, but I mean, I'm not saying it's not necessarily based on issues, but it's like, what does Harris actually believe in? It's something that's continually evolving. We know that she's gone against what she believed in 2019 when she said she believed in Medicare for all, she believed in the Green New Deal, anti-fracking, and she went up against all of those things. Some of the policies that she just talked about, like just recently, I think it was just a couple of days ago, about having people who are tipped employees not paying taxes. And so I mean, it seems okay, maybe, but I mean, what about that person who's a cashier, who's making minimum wage? They're going to have to be paying taxes, but if you're a tipped employee, you're not going to have to be paying taxes. I mean, it just seems like they're not thought out well. And also, she's also, I'm not trying to be negative. I mean, I hope she wins and I hope she changed her policy set. But I'm just pointing out that these are the policy issues that she has. I mean, I will vote for her regardless, but I want her to improve her policy sets. So,
do you think the huge turnout is still something that's going to favor the Democrats here, or do you think that this time around turnout might be more of a boon to Republicans?
No, I think they'll favor the Democrats. I think that I mean, if you look at 2020 was the greatest year for for Democratic turnout. The second highest was, well, I mean, Trump was the second highest, of all time. But I mean, as far as who actually won an election, I mean, for 2 cycles after the Obama victory in 2008, he still held that record. I mean, Trump and Clinton didn't get more votes than him in 2016. He didn't get as many votes in 2012, and Romney certainly didn't get as many votes as he did. And so there are a lot of people who don't turn out during midterm elections. And so, I mean, I don't want to get to I'm just trying to be honest about this, but I don't want to offend anybody also. But I mean, a lot of times, I'm just trying to be factual here that, a lot of minority voters don't turn out as well in midterm elections. That was a bit of a change during the 2018. Again, the record went from 44 million to 60 million. I mean, that differential of 16 million votes was actually higher than the differential between the Obama totals from 2008 to the Biden totals in 2020, where the difference was 13 million. And so, I mean, there was a lot of anger at Republicans, mainly because of Trump. And so that was a great time for Democrats.
Do you think we'll be drafting a platform during the DNC, the upcoming DNC next week, for Harris Walt's campaign? What do you think goes on there? I mean, because people are saying, like, come on with the policy, and it might be a little premature, especially because she's the incumbent VP or the current VP, and it's, how's that work? Like what can we expect to see this coming week? Anything?
I hope so. I mean, I think that's necessary. People want to know where she stands. I mean, I think she's been ambiguous because once you do come out with policy, you're going to alienate people. You're going to alienate people who are, if you come out with conservative policies, you're going to alienate progressives. If you could come out with progressive policies, you're going to alienate conservatives. And so I think that she's a little bit leery of that. But I mean, she has to do it. I mean,
what do you expect the platform to be? Do you have any predictions? Would you even do that?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be. I domestically, I think it'll be similar to Biden's policies. I mean, from what I've seen so far, I think she may actually not be as good. Hopefully she'll be better on foreign policy, especially, with there's some signs that she is better on the genocide in Gaza. And she's not as tied to all the kind of, America is this kind of hegemonic power. But I don't know also about that. I hope she can. I hope it's a good platform. I'm sure I'm not going to like a lot of it, but at the same time, I'm just going to voice my opinion, and at the same, it's. That's why I think primaries are important, because this is like when I called in December, and Sam called me my call fortuitous and fantastical when I said people should jump in to challenge Biden. I mean, looking back, I think that I was right on the money on that. I mean, they should have. I don't think they could have necessarily won, but I mean, at least get those policies out there. I mean, I mean, this is what we talked about consistently: is get those policies out there.
Yeah, I've underappreciated that.
Yeah, and so like I was noticing Bernie. Nobody ran against Bernie, and that's I mean, that's fine. But I mean, a lot of people ran against progressives. Okay, so now let's look at. It's 60-40 now, with 26% of the vote in on these ballot measures. And so, I mean, now, you're looking at numbers: Milwaukee 70-30. You're looking at Dane County, which is Madison, in that general area. It's 80-20 in Dane County. La Crosse is 70-30. Eau Claire 66-34. And so you're getting all these Democratic strongholds in, and so I think that's great. I don't know if that total is they're actually going to win by 20 points. I think that it's still Wisconsin is still a very purple state. But I'd love to see like a 10-point victory, an 8-point victory, to just kind of like, I mean, this is moving towards Democrats. Because I mean, you look at like the state Supreme Court races where they did well, and like I said, 11 out of 15 of the last statewide elections, Democrats won. Tony Evers won. I mean, that was one of my picks that nobody got right that I did in 2022. And so yeah, it's just I just hope that it's looking really good right now. I mean, it's really as far as 27% of the vote, but more of the votes are coming in. I mean, Dane County only has 47% of the votes in Milwaukee, and so I mean, those numbers are just going to keep moving up. Waukesha, it's a 16-point lead for yes. And there's a lot of people who live there because essentially they're the suburbs of Milwaukee. And I was wrong about that. It wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a mass shooting. It was a Christmas mass shooting that happened on November 21st of 2021, killing 6 people and injuring 62 others. So, I mean, this is part of the sickness of America is this crazy gun culture, and so. And
I like how Waltz refers to it as gun violence policy and not, or gun violence reform and not gun reform. And he's being very specific. I hadn't heard that yet, and I thought that was smart. And I wonder how much of his personal, I always feel like, and I feel like I'm right about this, but correct me if I'm wrong. I always feel like the VP pick is just some name. They just throw that on there, and it's to appease certain voters who may not be totally on board with the presidential candidate, the main candidate. But I wonder if this case, are they going to take a lot of his input? Because he seems to be driving a lot of this energy right now, right? And so I wonder if they're going to give him a lot of input. And does that help Jake and I have talked about this on his show recently. Does that help with what I view as a sort of conundrum? How does the current VP choose a platform that may differ with her current boss, the president, right? Like how does she walk that line? Does that get messy? And can they sort of share the weight here and go, well, Waltz is on the ticket too. Sorry, Joe Biden. Waltz has some ideas for the platform, and we're letting his input come through. So it's not all Kamala just being contradictory to whatever Biden may be calling for in terms of, I think I'm talking mostly about his more conservative policies, especially when it comes to Israel and Gaza. But what do you think about that? Is it a weird situation for the VP to pick a platform that differs with the current president?
Well, I think
and does Waltz help that?
Well, Waltz definitely helps. I mean, all the public opinion polls that I've seen, Waltz is far and away more popular than Kamala herself, than Trump or J.D. Vance. I mean, he is very popular. I mean, extremely popular, and that was an excellent pick. So I got to give her credit for making that pick. And so I think his rhetoric is excellent. His skills as a politician are superb. As far as I think we talked about this actually last week, and I think I said that she's an employee, but I mean, I think that she also kind of needs to have a conversation with him and say, like, look, this, I've got to do what I have to do to make my chances of winning, give me the best chance of winning. And that means that I may have to break with you a little bit. And I know you're in office, going to be in office for what is it going to be? Another 4 months?
Right.
But I mean, I feel like I kind of do need to break from you. And I mean, I don't know. I was a little bit more skeptical a few weeks ago, but I mean, just from a I don't know, from an electoral standpoint, I think that that's a wise thing to do, to try to make that break.
We're going to have debates. I mean, if Trump is essentially debating Harris, who is just a more coherent version of the exact same policy as Biden, that doesn't make sense to me. Continue throwing him curveballs. He's out there saying, no, I signed up to run against Biden. Who's Harris? This isn't fair. Well, if she now comes at him with a whole new platform, or not entirely new platform, but a new enough platform that he's like, oh man, this makes me look bad. Because look, I'm sorry, the way Biden was debating, okay, if anybody else had said what he was saying, we would have been like, all right, good job, you won the debate. But I'm sitting here as a progressive going, this is not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. So if she comes at him with actual progressive policies, a populist, I'm dying to know how this is. I want to get as close to the Bernie Trump debate that we wanted to see as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for here. And I want Harris to come out with something like that, where it's just like, you can't argue with that. He would, it's like, make him agree or make him look like the evil bastard that he is.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't. The only thing I would say is that I don't agree with the premise that a lot of folks say, that the VP pick doesn't matter. Like the VP doesn't matter. First of all, it's the first decision you make for your presidency, even if you don't make it when you're president. It's the first decision of your presidency.
Is it influential though? Because I agree with you, but is it influential? You know what I mean? Typical.
Caucus. Think about the guy that couldn't spell potato, Sarah Palin,
right?
Dan Quayle. Even Joe Biden, oh God, yeah, and Joe Biden. It signals to the country which way am I leaning? What am I going to give you? On top of that, you are picking a politician who will get name recognition. So whatever they do going forward, which probably means running for president eventually, whatever they do going forward has the added benefit of the bonus name recognition you got for being vice president. So it does matter, and you're essentially, in my opinion, and it does help build the way the party's going in the future. It lays the groundwork for that. And picking somebody who is willing to listen to progressives, if not a progressive himself, I think is a really encouraging sign from Kamala Harris. She's shown in the past she's willing to work with progressives if she's not one herself. And this is more of that.
Yeah, she had a good voting record in the Senate. I mean, when she came into the Senate, it was good. And I mean, I was real disappointed when she dropped Medicare for all. And I thought, my first thoughts were like, sell out. But I mean,
those were also my final thoughts on that.
But I do think that she has the tendency to be more of a popularist, and I think that she's afraid that if she doesn't have the money from big money backers, that she didn't have a chance to win, which I don't agree with. But I mean, that's the way she felt, and I hope she changes. But we'll just have to see. I mean, I think most people who are approaching this election as beat Trump at any cost. I think I did a tweet just a few hours ago. I was actually, as I was eating my dinner, from this guy from Volt, and he was saying nobody cares about policy, and I was like, no, that's completely wrong.
Apparently, you haven't met progressives.
Yeah,
wow.
And so I was just like, no, and this guy's supposed to be like a climate expert. I mean, he's been on Sam's show before, and I was just
this
like,
is somebody who definitely talks to centrists a lot. Because I would believe that somebody talking to that crew would think, oh, people don't care about policy. Yeah, that's what makes them centrist. They have no idea what they're voting for.
Right. Here's the actual quote. Let me see if I got the quote tweet.
Who was it again?
It's his name is Dr. Volts, I think is his name. Okay, I guess he retweet it. Let me see if I can find it.
Shaking here. A gloved fist at Superman.
No, it says take. For normie Democrats, policy differences between D's and R's are so unfathomably vast that the details of Harris' positions don't matter. The people who want details are A, Republicans who want to use them to bash her, B, journals, or in quote, trying to put journalists who want to use details to put Democrats in disarray, and C, online Dems who want to use the details to prosecute long-standing intramural disputes. Contemplating the landscape, you can understand why the campaign is not eager to rush into this buzzsaw. So this is talking about we don't really need to have policy out. So here's my was I said, what a ridiculous statement that policy differences don't matter within the Democratic Party. He's supposed to be a climate expert, and he doesn't know the difference between progressive, moderate, and conservative Democrats on the issues then he needs to do more research. So
with Medicare for all, and now also this, doesn't it just remind you guys of like Obama talking about gay marriage, or all politicians talking about gay marriage for a while there? Like, we know what the right answer is. We know what the moral and correct thing is, but we're not ready to say it out loud yet. It was a big deal when Obama came out in support of gay marriage, and Joe Biden actually beat him to it. It was a big deal, but it was one of those things that we knew he knew for a long time. But they were pretending like, well, but America's just not ready to not be bigoted yet. That's where people get a lot of this mistrust of politicians. If you already know what reality is, and you're just incapable of communicating it to enough voters that you get elected, then you're a bad politician, and you ought not to be in the position you're in. Because sort of the hard part of this is figuring out what the right thing to do is. We already know what the right thing to do is with Medicare for all. We have other countries around the world who've got its equivalent. They're doing great. But we have this game that they're playing where, well, Harris supported it for a while, but then there was a rumor here or a mean giggle here, and now she's afraid to. And it's the nonsense I can't stand.
Yeah, I think it's more of something that she doesn't think she can compete without big money. And the one thing about the presidential race is that you can compete. You don't have to necessarily have I mean, don't get me wrong, most of the time the person who has the most fundraising does win. But I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, Hillary Clinton outraised Trump in 2016 and she lost. I mean, Bob
But Trump
Dole.
understood something. Trump understood something that Democrats need to learn immediately if they want to become effective campaigners, which they sort of already are, but let me just finish this point anyway. You need the money to buy television time and radio time of you saying things that will get people to vote for you and not your opponent. And another way you can get that is by saying something that's worth reporting. So if Kamala Harris comes out in support of Medicare for all, let's just take that as an example, and she says it in such a way that makes Trump have to respond to it in a way that makes it clear that he is not for that, that's going to do the equivalent of $100 million of donations if it gets played on the news all around the country.
If the money went to the ads, they wouldn't need as much.
Yeah.
Right? That's what gets me, because look, man, making videos for fucking YouTube is not super expensive. Using existing clips of your opponent saying some dumb shit and then saying, I'm Kamala Harris and I approve of this, that's really easy. And a lot of people are doing it. And it shouldn't cost billions of dollars.
Well, it costs the money. It costs the money because of where they're airing it. I mean, they're airing it on areas, like let's say you look at all the swing states. I mean, you got to air them in Philadelphia. You got to drive turnout in Philadelphia. You got to drive turnout in Detroit, in Milwaukee, in Phoenix. I mean, in
You're saying
Atlanta.
The news or the outlets like the cable channels,
yeah,
or
well, it's the cable
networks?
channels and also the network. I mean, the individual affiliates in those large cities where you need to drive turnout. I mean, it costs money to do that. The bigger the bigger the city is, the more money it's going to cost. And so I mean, so yeah, that's what it costs. Going back to your point that he was talking about before, it's this whole kind of thing with popularism. I'm glad that Sam, I guess it was last week, he did this thing with Cenk, and I think I've had a conversation with you about how Cenk has completely lost his way.
Yeah.
And he's gone into this whole thing about popularism, which is just ridiculous. I mean, if you can't really stand for your values, why do you even why are you even in the game? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
I understand. I mean, I do understand strategic voting, and that's what I was talking about, the Shanklin race, the Cook race, and comparing them. But I mean, even Shanklin, who was the more, who was the second most progressive in the race. I mean, she's still down by 16 points. And so it's like, it's hard. It's hard to win these races. She has union support, but I mean, it's just hard to do it. So we're at the 50% of the vote in Wisconsin, and things are looking really good for the no votes. We got up by 19 points. Dane County is already, more than 95% of the vote. That's Madison. So Madison and that area, and it's 81% of the county voted no on that. Only 19% voted yes. So more than 4 out of 5 voters But I mean, Dane County is just awesome. I mean, the percentage of the county. I mean, Madison is just an incredible, progressive city. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, it may be, as a percentage, the best county in the whole country. I mean, their turnout rates are incredible. They're so just they're just unbelievable. I mean, and so I'm just really happy about that. The 70-30 ratio in Milwaukee is also good, only 70%. So I mean, this looks like it's very likely will be a blowout because I mean I'm looking at other totals, and there's some. I mean, there are still quite a few counties that haven't reported anything, but I don't know, up by 20 points with 50% of the vote in, and there have been counties that have reported already that have fairly not huge margins, but like the Waukesha County is a plus 14 for the yes vote, which is a conservative county. So that's not even equaling the Trump Biden numbers from 2020, because it was a plus 20 for Trump, and now it's just a plus 14 on this yes no vote. And so yeah, I mean, I think that people are like, they don't really want this. And I mean, it's already more than 95% of the vote is in. And so I think that these both of the no votes are gonna win, like I said, hopefully by 8 points, but at the least by 6 points. I mean, you might have some kind of last minute rule surge, but I mean, there's just not enough votes out there. I mean, you look at, I mean, what I'm trying to get, I don't know if they have total vote totals in, okay, it's 600,000. 1/3 of those votes actually just come from, more than a third, come from Dane and Milwaukee County. I mean, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting results from everywhere in Minnesota, but the 5th district. What do you think is up with that?
I think that there's a lot of people who vote who have jobs, and they vote late. I mean, after their job is over, they go to vote, and their lines. I think this is a high profile race.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. I mean, with the Tehran race, there was actually a law. I think I talked about this. I didn't know it at the time, but I mean, there was a law that said the Arizona legislature passed, saying that you have to have all of the votes counted before they would even take them to the central tabulator. That's not that way in Minnesota. Minnesota has they are super progressive as far as voting. Like I said, they have the highest voting percentages of any state in the country. And you look at other states that have high voting percentages, and a lot of them, have mail-in votes. You're talking about Colorado, Oregon, Washington State. I mean, California is a hybrid where you can vote by. I mean, a lot of places you can't vote by mail. Also, except for like southern states where they really don't let you do that. But unless there's like COVID in 2020. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you look at. I mean, you have to make it easy for people to vote. Mail them the ballot, once you're registered, and have them vote. I mean, that you want to make it as easy as possible and get as many people as you can voting. And so, I mean, I commend those states, like I just mentioned. Those states are great. And in Minnesota, I think it is easy to vote by mail if you choose to, but it's not like a strictly vote by mail state like some of the other ones I mentioned. In California, like I said, it is it's a hybrid. You can vote by mail, or you can vote. You can go to and cast a ballot in person if you want. And I think people want choices. And I think that may be the best way. But yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, what are we into? We into an hour and 6 minutes after the polls close, and we have no results.
I mean,
Wow.
congratulations, Amy Klobuchar, but yeah, no other real results.
That's weird that she had 1, 2, 3, 4 people run against her, and the highest person is 2.1%. I mean, it's just 7% of the race in, and they already called the race for Klobuchar. Yeah. I mean, not my favorite politician, but yeah, I mean, Tina Smith
kind of fine too.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of a typical Democrat. I mean, I think that I mean, I would not want her to be the candidate, running for president.
No,
but
I can't hear that Blizzard story one more time.
Yeah, I mean, she did kind of strike a nerve with some people in New Hampshire. I mean, she got a decent amount of votes. I mean, I don't understand why, but I mean, yeah. So anyway, I mean, she again votes with the party most of the time, and so I mean, does the party go far enough many times? For me, no. But I mean, there could be worse. I mean, Tina Smith is much better. She was actually campaigning with Ilhan Omar, quite a bit. Bernie was there, not the last weekend, but 2 weekends ago. And so not Klobuchar, but Tina Smith was campaigning with Ilhan Omar, last weekend. And so I got to give it up for her. I mean, she's decent. Like, she's top 15 voting record in the Senate. Let me just check on that to make sure, but I think that's about correct. And I mean, not again, not a Bernie, but I mean, how many people are like Bernie? Merkley and Markey, and I mean, I know some people are not gonna like when I say Warren, but I mean, I think their voting record, speaks for itself. I don't like what what she did to Bernie in that last, when they all ganged up on him, and she said that Bernie said that a woman couldn't
Just
win.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that. I just don't. I mean, I don't agree.
She's like,
with
"Did
that.
you call me a liar on national TV?" Remember that? And he goes,
Yeah.
"Come on, we'll talk about that later."
Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, I don't agree with that, but yeah, I mean, on Progressive Punch, she's like at number 21 is having the best voting record. So I mean, that's not bad. I mean,
Okay, we got results. Stand
Okay,
by.
so we got results in the Omar race.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Here we go.
Okay.
Finally.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, it's close. It's
Yeah.
close. That's not good.
We got 5%.
5%.
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
Oh,
I don't. Yeah. I mean, you don't know where this is coming from is the problem. Let me see if I can get on Twitter and see if somebody can actually.
Anoka?
Is that what it's?
Anoka County, 51% for Omar.
Well, I don't know. Is that
95% in that county?
Is
one
that?
of
Let
three.
me see. I mean, is that?
I'm going to make a prediction, and we'll see if it matches with what John's going to arrive at. I think the rest are going to come in heavily in favor of Ilhan Omar. I think this is one fairly centrist county in a relatively populous area.
Yeah, there's only 3 counties, and I really should know the main one. I think is I should know this.
Anoka, Hennepin, and Ramsey.
Yeah, let's see. Let me just Google it here. Minneapolis County.
Well,
I think that's
while you're looking that up.
Hennepin. Yeah, it is Hennepin. Hennepin's going to be the main county, and so yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think this is just looking at the map. This is the the map that's in the far northern area of the voting of District 5, and so yeah, it's 90% in, and I mean Omar still is leading by 3 points. So a worst case scenario is that she's going to win by 3 points, and she won by 2 points the last time. But it doesn't make any sense that because Hennepin she's going to win by huge margins, I would think, and so I just don't think it's going to be close. But yeah, I wish that those totals were a little bit higher,
Yeah.
But it's
Hey, John, real quick, something to think about. I don't know if you want to comment on this right away, but we have $5 super chat from Milo Rizon. Question for John from San Antone. Please comment on possible impact to 2022 Harris County election due to paper ballot shortage. Was that in Texas?
Yeah, that's Houston. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as local races, it may have had an impact. There weren't any state races that were close. I mean, it is the largest county in Texas. Yeah, I'm just not sure if I would have if that would have made any difference at all, because all across the South, Republicans really overperformed. Democrats did terribly, and so. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have crazy things that like Paxton, the attorney general, will say things like when he goes on Steve Bannon's show and saying, I prevented all these people in Harris County voted. He'll just admit it. And I don't, these people are such prolific liars that I think they're just trying to be, as outrageous as possible. I mean, they don't make it easy for people, that's for sure. I mean, I think. Texas is one of the hardest states to vote in. I remember in 2008, I moved back in 2001, and in 2008, they sent me a letter saying, you need to. I mean, I'd been voting all of this time, and they're saying, like, you need to show us your birth certificate. And I'm like, why do I have to do that? I mean, I have a driver's license. I've been voting in all of these elections, every election possible. And, and I mean, for me, $40 to look it up is, no big deal to me, but somebody who doesn't have the money, and wants to vote, it is a big deal.
Well, it's because we got to make sure you're not brown, John. I mean, Democrat. I mean, an illegal voter.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that there are, some people who run elections who have been, not so much on the up and up.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I know I don't know her, but I mean, since I follow elections so closely, her name's Jacqueline Callanan. And so she's been running the Bexar County elections for decades now, and I think she does a pretty good job.
There was an indictment today, apparently.
Oh yeah, I didn't
Harris
know that.
County election worker responsible for the paper ballot shortage. I did not know that.
Huh? Yeah. Okay. We'll
Interesting.
have to dig into that. My long birth certificate, Jonathan Armstead. Yeah.
If somebody asked me for my birth certificate now, like in South Carolina, I'd be like, I mean, what are you just trying to suppress every Democratic vote? Like, I don't get it, because I don't know. It's just
it's ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, I'd be
it's
offended.
ridiculous.
I'm not easily offended.
Because to originally get a driver's license the first time, I think you did need to show your driver's license. I mean, you did need to have your birth certificate initially when you get a driver's license, because you have no form of ID at that point, and so so I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. So,
earlier when you were saying that, Matt, when you were saying that you're not sure why the votes are taking so long, I maintain that for the near future, for that matter, the trauma of the accusations of Republicans is going to slow down the counting in big
Makes
cities.
sense.
It was already slower. It just takes longer to count more votes. But it used to be that there was some grace given, like they could a precinct could submit its reporting and then submit something saying, "Oh, we're correcting that. There's a change." I was working the newsroom when this would happen. But I notice, and I'm admittedly not working the newsroom anymore, but I notice that there is a cultural change, certainly, where the people in charge are saying, we are not submitting this until we are 100% sure of the count. Because if we hiccup at all, this is a county that Republicans will target and will try to accuse of faking something. So I think people are trying to avoid another Shea Moss situation.
Can they use this against us or against them? Yeah, and they could say, no, why is it taking so long? This is obviously fraudulent. It should be rapid.
Even if voting goes identically, like the counting of the votes goes identically to how it goes with Republican districts, and in every way except they arrive at a different vote, they'll say that's too similar. That never happens. It's a lie. Republicans simply can't be trusted.
Yeah, no, good point.
Thank you for the new sub, whoever that's for.
Yeah, and I just feel like it needs it doesn't need to be uniform. It needs to be uniform. There needs to be.
I'm just
see, help me with this, because I feel like how we did it in Boulder County, Colorado was pretty great. And I don't see why we're just allowed to do it differently from place to place. What do you think? No.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it takes the will of elected officials to do this. And so what that means it has to be a heavily Democratic state. So if you look at all these states that I mentioned, Oregon, California, Colorado, Washington State, they want people to vote, because I definitely agree that there is an advantage. There are more Democratic voters, in those states, and they want to use every advantage possible to get those voters. And it's just also a matter of civics. They think that people should be able to vote. I mean, this is, Republicans want to repress the vote because it's going to hurt them. The only way they can win, I'm not saying is by cheating, but they don't want everybody to vote because they understand the history of elections. And so just going back to the case that Milo Rasan mentioned, I'm looking at an article in the Texas Tribune that was published 4 hours ago, and it says investigators with the Texas Rangers and the Harris County District Attorney Office found no evidence of attempts to sway the county's November 22 election. Governor Greg Abbott and other Republicans heavily criticized Democratic county officials for how the state's most populous county ran the election. Some polling locations saw shortages of paper ballot and malfunctioning voting equipment. Some locations later in the day resulted in longer lines for voters. These irregularities drove more than 20 local Republican candidates to contest the election results, and Republican lawmakers in the Texas legislature that forced the county to devolve its elections administrative office. I mean, as far as
irregularities were cited as the excuse by these Republicans,
right? Yeah, so I mean, this is essentially Republicans complaining. I mean, which they do about everything. I mean, like this whole mythology that Trump has created, which is widespread. And it's actually going to have an impact on the 2024 election. Been reading and retweeting some stuff about some of the laws passed in Georgia. And essentially, I think there's been 2 laws that have been passed that to where right now the Republicans are I wish I had a better handle on this, but to articulate it better. But essentially, before they were supposed to, just say you don't have any discretion. You just tabulate the votes and that's all your job is, to where now they actually do have a little bit of discretion to say, we don't feel that things are being run properly and we're not going to certify the vote. But I mean, like,
undemocratic.
Right. It's incredibly undemocratic. But I mean, like, what's going to happen if you don't certify the vote? Are you saying like Georgia is not going to certify? I guess what they're going to do is try to do it in just like highly democratic areas, like, all the areas around Atlanta and around all the counties, surrounding counties, which are heavily democratic. I mean, eventually it's going to end up in court and the Supreme Court will probably have a say on this. But I mean, yeah, this is, I mean, I read articles about this all the time, in all these swing states, and a lot of them that have Republican legislatures, that is a widely believed idea, even though it's completely mythology. It's ridiculous. None of that stuff has happened.
I just don't want anybody out there thinking that you can trust Republicans at all with this stuff.
Right.
These are the same people on election night 2020 in one county. They were chanting where Trump was up. They were chanting "Stop the count."
Right.
And in another county where he was down, they were chanting "Keep counting," even though nobody had said they were stopping or going or anything like that. It just they couldn't help but to show how uninterested they were in the truth. All they wanted, because they are Republicans and they have no principles, in my opinion, all they wanted was a document somewhere that says Trump wins, haha. So when they say, well, if you see election irregularities, then we, this Republican-controlled state, can say that we're not going to certify the vote. You cannot trust them to do that. This should not be something we ignore. We can't just say, oh, it looks like we're going to get past it this time and they won't have an opportunity to fuck us over. They are prepared to go against the will of the people. This must be addressed.
Right. And another thing is, if the Republicans control the House and the Senate, are they going to certify the vote? I mean, that's what January 6th was about. And Democrats had majorities in both the House and in the Senate. So essentially that was never in question, that they were going to certify the vote. But like, the way things are looking right now, I've said this many times, that this is the battle for the trifecta is the closest that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the only thing that comes close to it is the 2000 election. And in that election, Republicans had 54 Senate seats and 227 House seats. Right now, Democrats have 51 Senate seats and they have 214. And I mean, those aren't exact numbers, but I mean, the seats that have, people who died and then people who resigned are safe seats. And so that is going to be the number going into the election, 221, because they flipped the Santos seat. And so it was 222. So now it's 221. So, I mean, if you just look at the numbers,
flip back.
Right, it will be the closest, and not just in like modern history, but I mean in the whole history of our country. I mean, because I've looked at this stuff going back to the 19th century, and this is like it's incredibly close. And
it will be the closest. I gotta throw this in here. It looks like it'll be the closest if people vote in the way that they normally vote. If people fall for the nonsense that they normally fall for, if they're willing to say, oh, well, maybe this party that has a traitor and an adjudicated sexual predator as their leader, maybe they've got something to say. But let me just remind all of America, who I assume is listening, if Republicans, if it is close, then any Republican in charge will try to overturn the will of the people. They have no interest in what the actual will of the people is. So unless it's a blowout for Democrats, we will have a second constitutional crisis in 4 years. We must prevent that. And after we prevent that this time, we must immediately do the work that Joe Biden failed to do of securing democracy in the United States. This fight is ongoing. If you feel exhausted, it's because we have been in a tug of war for 4 years with a bunch of traitors. We need to win. November is when we do it.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Good point.
Just looking at the ballot measures right now, 62% of the vote is in, 16-point lead for no. You got to feel good about that. I mean, I was expecting, like I was saying earlier in the night, an 8-point victory would feel good. Oh, they called that. They already called it, right?
Yeah,
wow, they called it. So no is won. This will not happen. They will not take away the ability for the governor to get money, federal money. I mean, talking about an anti-democratic idea that, you have a natural emergency, and this is the way things have always been run. You give the money to the government, to the governor, and he distributes that money. It doesn't have to run through the legislature. Now, bills that are passed in the state, they do have to. It's just like it is, in any other state or in the federal. Those are, you do have to win, a majority to do that. So super happy about that. 16-point lead is awesome. It gives me a lot of hope for Wisconsin about how well they're, how big the lead could possibly be for Harris. I mean, there was a poll that came out. I get the Siena poll that was commissioned by the New York Times, where Harris is up by 5. So I mean, that's incredible. I mean, because Biden was not doing well at all. And so now that she's doing well, it's great. It's great to know that. And so super happy about that. I mean,
good news.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, really great. I'm looking at some totals here. I mean, even Minnesota's 2nd district. I know I get a lot of well, I don't know. This is 73% of the vote is in. Some people don't like to compare vote totals. I think that they're actually, Democrat to Republican. I think that the correlation is actually much higher than people understand. Like in California, it's extremely rare, where they have a top 2 jungle primary, just like they do in Washington and in Louisiana. And I mean, there's like almost every race is correct. Before there were 53 seats, now there's 52, or maybe it's 52, 51. They did lose 1 seat in California. And I mean, the correlation is extremely high between actual vote totals in a primary to see who's going to actually win a race. And so this is a swingy district. Angie Craig, again, not a super progressive, more of a moderate conservative, but I mean, but people have to, those people have to win. I mean, you're not going to determine who's going to win the House. Those are going to be moderates and conservatives. I wish it in every swingy district, that they ran, progressives were doing well, but that's just not the reality of the situation. So anyway, it's like 73% of the vote. She has 20 23,000 votes. The Republican has 15,000, but he only has 51% of the vote, so there would be about 30. Yeah, that actually may be pretty close. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see at the end of the night.
John, is it possible to give a general primer on polling? Is that fair to ask? Like, how's it work in general, or are they all really like? Is there like 5 different kinds of polls, or methods of polling, or is there basically one? It's just who they're actually polling that makes it different.
No, I mean, there's all kinds of, and it's constantly evolving. Before it was all landline polling. It was all you call people, and this is 2000, even as late as 2012. It was mostly landline polls that were being used, and what they said before was that internet polls, they weren't a random sample. These are people who are partisans, and so how could you make a poll from people who already have strong opinions and they want to represent, who they believe in politically? And that actually makes sense if you think about it. But then when you actually look at the results from internet polls, they're pretty accurate. And so, in other words, even though you're basically looking at levels of enthusiasm, that's fairly accurate in generally gauging the electorate. I mean, it's extremely difficult because nobody answers their cell phone, and so it costs a lot more money than before. And this is what I was talking about. You were talking about the Harry Hinton, and I'm not that much of a fan of his, and I was kind of reluctant to even tweet it out, but I do agree with everything that he was stating, just as a fact. And the polling in the formerly blue wall states of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan were off by huge margins in both the 2016 and the 2020 election. And that's one of the things that I'm most afraid of, is that that's going to happen again. And even though Harris has, I mean, I wouldn't say big leads, she has like I don't know, I personally, in my thing, she has like a 1.1 point lead. I did yesterday. I mean, you'll see other pollsters, aggregators saying he has a 1.5 point lead. I mean, these aren't huge leads, but I mean, if that happens again, I mean, Trump's going to win. I mean, and it's just, I just hope it doesn't happen again. And it's also interesting to think about sociologically, because why does this happen? Why does this happen in 2 elections in those states, but it didn't happen in, let's say, in Georgia and Arizona, where the numbers were actually incredibly accurate? I mean, I had my average, my guess was a 1 point victory in Georgia, and for Biden, and Biden ended it up by 0.2. So even there, it was a slightly more, but I mean by 0.8%. And so like,
I have an answer.
Go ahead.
No, I have a suggested answer. I'd like to know what you think. It's the same reason Dave Chappelle was shaking his head when a bunch of people were saying, "I don't even recognize America anymore." It's the quiet racism of the North. And I know a lot of people are sick of hearing, "Oh, well, MAGA is racist." But like, look, that red cap with MAGA on it does the same thing that the Confederate flag does. It tells people of a certain persuasion that you are their enemy and you're going to vote against their interests, and you're supposed to be polite to them because they have a right to blah, 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 blah. There is, however, in Michigan, for example, a good chance that we're going to have an awkward interaction if you walk around with that on your head, because some of us got family, some of us have friends, coworkers, people we want to be able to look in the eye and say, I didn't let somebody get away with saying you belong in chains. In Georgia, I don't think there was a lot of people in 2016 necessarily that were shy about saying, I'm MAGA 100%. But in Michigan, I'm sure there were. And I'm sure when you're getting called on the phone and the wife's in the room or your daughter's visiting or whatever, I'm sure you're less likely to say, I'm voting Trump. I think in 2020, it was a little bit more acceptable. After all, this is the president. Maybe I just am a loyal Republican. And now, once again, 2024, now it's after this guy got convicted of this and that, and it's after there's a bunch of scandals. I just think that shy Trump voter is a dangerous thing. And I think the shy Trump voter happens in the union, basically, where there is some social consequence to saying, I'm going to vote directly against the interests of gays and black folks and yada, yada, yada.
Well,
that's my theory.
Yeah, I mean, I'll address that, because, pollsters have conventions and this is what they do when they have conventions, and they look at exactly what you're talking about. And they felt that there wasn't a shy voter. What did happen, there are two separate things that happened in those states. In 2016, pollsters underestimated the number of people with lower amounts of education, because usually those people don't turn out. But or they turn out in low numbers. But Trump, they did turn out for Trump. And so that was the reason why. And in 2020, Trump was so fake news, fake media, and so they just didn't answer their phones. And so that was the evaluation of what the Association of Pollsters came up with. I mean, I'm not saying that's right or it's wrong, but these are the the professional people who run poli-sci departments, or who actually or who actually because like Fox News, their polls are actually pretty good. I mean, because what they'll do is they'll have two separate pollsters. One is a Republican pollster and one is a Democratic pollster, and they have to get together and try to work together to put out an accurate poll. And most of their polls are pretty accurate. And so that's what they came up with. I think there are definitely some shy Trump voters, though. I mean, as a percentage, it's hard to evaluate, what it's going to be. A lot of it, the numbers weren't as great as they thought they were going to be. Okay, so we got, wow, this is over, it looks like.
Yep.
I mean, they all just came in all at once. Ilhan Omar up by 13.3%.
95% of the vote.
Yeah, over 90. Yeah, and so it's over. So I mean, resounding victory. I mean, Hennepin County, 114,000 votes at 120,000 out of the 100. Yeah, I mean, they should make a call.
Does Don Samuels try this again?
No, I don't think he will. I mean, he's already lost twice. I mean, he came within 2 points in 2022. Now he's losing by 13.3. I mean, it's like give it up already. I mean,
finally, give him a whooping. John, do you want to go ahead and call it?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, there it is. There's the AP call. Yeah. So
Right, guys,
I mean,
John beat him. Yeah. John called it first. Y'all heard it here.
I think
YTV and Letterhack news desks.
A 13-point lead with is that less or is it over 95% in? I don't know my things, but I mean, that's crazy. I mean,
it's 95% of the votes.
But I think it's less. Is it? Yeah,
greater than.
I think it's over. It's greater than. Yeah,
You're
it's
right.
greater than. Okay,
greater than. Sorry.
So it's they'll never. I mean, once it's that total, they're not going to probably have any votes coming in anymore.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, that's what it's. I mean, it wasn't quite as high as the poll said. Even the Samuels poll had him, Omar up by 17, so it's a little bit closer, but yeah, it's still a victory. I mean, whether it's a 2-point win or 13.3% win. I mean, this is what we're looking for. This is another squad victory, and it's a shame
We needed this one.
Yeah, we did, and it's a shame that Bowman and Bush went down, but she established herself. APAC Splinter Group said, no, we're not going to put this money in. This other clown from WhatsApp, put a few hundred, decided to burn a few $100,000. And, but I mean, yeah, here it is. Here's the victory right there. So, yeah, I guess we got calls. We got calls in the Omar race. We got calls in, the congressional races in Wisconsin, and the constitutional amendment races. That actually, you have 2 calls. Oh my God! And then the Cook Shanklin race is now close. Now, I mean,
oh really?
I know. Yeah, it's a 1.2% lead for Cook. Wow. I mean, again, Shanklin, not Eric. Eric Wilson's at 7.6%. He's the best candidate. Just moved to 7.9%. Cook just picked up some. Now it's a 2.5% lead. But I mean, again, I mean, she's got union support. I mean, I wish it was Wilson. I wish we lived in a world where Wilson was competitive. He's got the best issue set, but given the choice, if Wilson would have never ran, Shanklin with that union support, and she does have the support also of Mark Pocan, who is the congressman from Madison. Yeah, so okay, so it's 80% of the vote now in, with Cook up by 2.7. And yeah, let me just see.
It's still a race.
Yeah, it's still a race. I think Wood County, I think Wood County is where Shanklin is from, because she's up by 27 points, and there's still 19% out in that county. And so that's looking good. The problem is Eau Claire has still got 14% out, and that's a plus 24 Cook area. And so and then there's a bunch. Yeah, so Cook is winning everywhere else. And so yeah, it's going to be hard for Shanklin to win. But
it's funny. I don't even know where to look for these results online, much less the in-depth way that you do it. It's very impressive. I gotta say this. Everyone should be watching What You Can Do with Jake Drogellis. It is a incredibly informative and vital show to watch if you are trying to not only stay informed, but manage your expectations and your emotions and your hopium, and find a very practical way to approach the issues that we face politically and in the news.
And occasionally, if you want to be able to point at somebody and be like, hey, I'm handling this news better than the host of this show.
Yeah. And fair, but you can say that yourself. And look, if you aren't following John on Twitter, then why are you on Twitter? Because that place is a shit show. John's work and input is where you should be looking for not only progressive politics, but a progressive's perspective on politics.
And if you want to know what's going to happen a week before everybody else,
there are some
follow
good
John.
takes. There are some very good takes. It is very well thought out. It's very thoughtful, sensible. Everyone should be following John, both these guys. The links are in the description of this podcast. Please do not hesitate to subscribe, follow, like, share, support as much as possible. I'm in no rush to get out of here. I just want to make sure we cover these things before we do go. I will be back here on this channel tomorrow night at 10 p.m. That's Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, with Left Past 10. Jake and I will be back there with our fellow host, Andrea and Sandy from Above It All and Environmental Coffee House, respectively. Then Thursday night, myself with Professor Harvey K will be on the Leftist Mafia promoting our new comic at commondreams.org, a new economic bill of rights for the 21st century. And then Friday around 1 p.m. Eastern, Professor Harvey K and myself will be on The Majority Report, doing the exact same thing, promoting that comic. We officially will be on The Majority Report after Leftist Mafia. So, our reach is pretty great this week.
Gang,
but
heads up, I'm
too.
taking Thursday off. We're going to be doing a watch party in the comments of Leftist Mafia.
Nice.
I really want to ride those coattails, live vicariously through Matt for a while.
Nice. Yes, that'll be fun. And then next week is a whole nother week. We're doing This Is Revolution podcast. There's a lot going on next week. So, the hits, they keep on hitting. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we covered all that. Do you guys have any, final thoughts or insights about any and all of the stuff that we talked about tonight?
No, I'm real happy that Ilhan Omar won, and that the constitutional amendments in Wisconsin were voted down.
Yeah.
Glad. I wish Shanklin would win, but it's 82% of the vote in. Pretty unlikely that she's going to win, but she's not quite 2,000 votes under Cook right now, and there's still a lot of districts where Cook is has like 55% of the vote in, where she's up by 30 points. I mean, these rural districts have a tendency to vote for conservative Democrats. I mean, it's just that way. I mean, I wish it was different. I think Bernie, did make a little bit of a impact, like you were saying before, but I'm just going by historical precedent mostly, and so I think Bernie had a certain amount of charisma also, kind of like working class bona fides, or at least he was able to let working class people identify with him. They felt like he was an ally, to where some progressives, like I was saying earlier, especially if they're not necessarily white and older like they are, you look at all the squad members, and most of them, are black and brown candidates, and I think that sometimes that can hurt them. I think that hurt Bowman. I think it. Well, I don't know about Bush, because the guy she ran against was also black, but he was just a bad candidate. But again, the big story in both those races was the AIPAC money, and it's just hard to overcome that.
They're outspoken in calling for ceasefire.
Yeah.
In Israel.
Yeah, but I think without all that money, they could have both won. Not Bowman would have been harder because the district changed. And I think that there was just, a lot of Jewish voters who have, okay, so it looks like, now Cook's up by 7, and it's more than 95% of the vote. So this should be, they're going to call this race, like, probably within a couple of minutes. yeah. So, oh well. I mean, Shanklin, like, again, wasn't a tremendous, like, oh my God, this is a squad member. But I mean, I'm just trying to take any kind of, union backing, like I said, Pocan, I do respect Pocan. I mean, not as much as, like squad members, but he's on squad adjacent, has a good voting record, and represents Madison, which is a great area. But yeah, that the Cook's going to win this race. So,
well, gents, I want to thank you for being here. This was 3 of 3 special election night coverages. You guys bring a substantial level of credibility to this sort of show, and I was glad to have you. I was glad to do this. We had folks tune in.
I feel like we knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely. I mean, we have folks tuning in tonight who couldn't find this coverage anywhere else. So there's that. I'd be glad to do this more if the occasion should arise. Like I said, please follow Jake. Please follow John. You guys, you'll find their links in the description of this podcast. We are cross-pollinating shows all the time. We are tweeting each other out all the time. We are sharing, liking, and subscribing, and you should too. One note about tonight, I just want to apologize to Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland and Matt Leck and Bradley Alsop and whoever else I may have offended by having John on the show. I mean, geez Louise. But I also just want to point out that I really had nothing to do with it. I'm not stoking any animosity.
He just comes on the best shows he can get on,
And to John's point, when he called into the Majority Report today, he said, you're both really great guys.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean,
nothing to complain about, really.
It's just a bit. I mean, I said that from day one. It's a bit that Sam likes to do, and yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I'm still not sure about that. I guess we'll see Friday.
Yeah,
I'm nervous.
I wouldn't be nervous. I mean, all
right,
whatever. I mean, he's. Well,
I'll have you there with me in spirit, John. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds
good.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks everybody for watching. This was a lot of fun. We'll see you next time.
The Letterhack. Oh my gosh. He don't miss, folks. He does not miss whatsoever.
Kowalski from Nebraska. Full disclosure, Sam, the Letterhack, has invited me to be a guest on his program. I do not, of course, do not want to step on any toes at the Majority Report. But if there's one thing Michael Brooks taught us, it's that we really have to network. That is very, very true.